So, the end of Old English times is marked by the Norman Conquest, 1066, William the Conqueror. I mean, you know about these things. Just briefly here, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle entry, 1066. Here fortfaarde Edward King and Harold Earl feng unto them riche. Here come Willem, je van England and her on Sythoniere Barn Christus Church. What is easy to be translated. Here fortfaarde went away Edward King, and Harold the Earl started to reign, thanks to some Reich. This is still the German word, Reich. Okay. Here came Wilhelm, Guillaume, Guillaume, le Conqueror, and won England. And here in this year burned Christ's Church, most likely it is the Cathedral of Canterbury. 1066, William the Conqueror. If there's one date you have to know, it's that one. William, who was he? He was illegitimate, an illegitimate first cousin once removed of Edward the Confessor. And up to the present day, the monarchy draws its legitimacy, and this is the funny thing, from blood relation, or from a blood relation to this pirate, rapist, not a very nice man, whose claim on the English throne was almost nil, rather tenuous. Here we go. Yes, but, I mean, the present King Charles still proud of being related to this obnoxious individual. This is a scene of a tapestry of Bayeux, the Battle of Hastings, in 1066 between the Anglo-Saxons and the Normans. You see, this is the scene where King Harold is put to death by an arrow through his eye. Okay. What impact did it all have, culturally speaking? I mean, first of all, politically speaking, the Normans brought with them the feudal system, where everything, all honors, whatever you are, who you are in society, depends on your holding of land, which you receive from the king and then rent out to the lower echelons of society. This is a good illustration here. The king provides land and he gives that to his nobles and they rent it out to his vassals, and they further on give it to the peasants, and in return they fight for the king and provide food. I mean, so this is a sort of pyramid, and a completely different society to this more tribal society of Anglo-Saxon times, the feudal system. The cultural impact it had, and this is what should interest us here most, is of course that it produced the knight. Knights before that, we had warriors in Old English times, no knights. The knight, an aristocrat, usually second, third, fourth born, and who roams the countryside in search of adventure, if you like, protecting the weak, and most of all ladies, all that. I mean, this sort of person who is so prominent in medieval or Middle English and medieval literature in general of the High Middle Ages was produced by the feudal system. Here is one proponent. Okay. A note, I mean, you still have, the feudal system is still ingrained, if you like, in the language today, because, I mean, knight, Middle English Knecht, this is the way you would pronounce it in Middle English times, is still cognate to the German Knecht, which means farm laborer. in German. You see, there's an amelioration in English because, I mean, this farm laborer who later on, of course, supported the king and so on. In German, we have Ritter, which is Reiter, which means the one who is on horse, and equestrian privileges were, of course, only granted to the aristocracy. You have the same thing in French, chevalier. A knight is somebody who is associated with cavalry. Here we go. Okay. What about the language and the culture they brought with them? First of all, the Normans spoke French. I mean, they are originally, of course, of Viking stock, but had assimilated in Normandy to French culture in 1 or 2 generations. Okay, and many family names in England today are still of Norman stock, such as Butler, Gascoigne, Gerard, even Chaucer and Shakespeare, by the way. You still have the patronymic names with Fitz, meaning son of, so Fitzgerald, Fitzwilliam, Fitzherbert, and so on. Yes, the Normans are there, and they are prominent. Today assimilated, Bennett, and what have you. I mean, everything that sounds a bit French in names, except for Nigel Farage, is of Norman stock. Okay, French, they adhered to the French language for something like the Normans did, 300 years at least. And why was that? Language is always a question of prestige, and French just had the highest prestige in Europe in those days. I mean, English was a regional language spoken on a rock in the North Atlantic, and that was it. But French was the lingua franca, at least in Northern Europe, and particularly the Parisian French, of very high prestige. Even Richard Lionheart, the great literary Reinhard, glorified into one of the greatest kings of England. I mean, he spent probably a couple of months in his life in England, and he is a confirmed rapist and a very bad man. But there you see how history works. He was glorified, and his brother, John, who was probably a lot better than he was, well, derogated. Okay, anyway, what did the Normans do in terms of language? I mean, the important thing is that the cloisters became French-speaking. This means the centers of learning spoke French, and the language of instruction became French, and English only spoken by the peasantry. And then something happens, if this happens, that only the peasants, only the uneducated, illiterate people speak a language, it loses its standard. Nobody regards anymore that the grammatical rules are observed and things like that. And this means the language is simplified. And this is what happened to English. Most of all, I mean, the suffixes were lost. We still have 2, more or less, S, third person singular for the genitive or the plural, and we have the ed for the participle. But that is about it. We had many, 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 many more in those days, and just compared to the German. In German, I mean, a plural, as in a word, the towers, in German, the Türme, is denoted by 3 plural markers, by the umlaut, by the article, and by the ending. In English, you only have towers, 1, which suffices completely. So this means redundancies were done away with. Why should you have 3 plural markers if 1 suffices? I mean, that's the thing. So that is that. You lose grammatical gender. Why should a table have a gender? Doesn't make sense. German, we still grapple with those things. And most of all, English became analytic, but we have to look at Old English first. Old English is a synthetic language, which means the grammatical relation in a sentence are, in a way, encoded in endings. Okay, in grammatical endings, morphemes we call them. Hiaf the Münster Borg. So Thumbminster is a different case from Verborg. Verborg is an accusative, and the Minster is a dative, if you like. And therefore, you can switch around. Yeah, hier Verborg, Thumbminster. I mean, you can still do that in German. In contemporary English, the syntax is not free anymore, and this means it's an analytic language today. So grammatical relations are observable in through the position of the word in the sentence. SPO. He gave the book to the cloister, and of course in the prepositions. So an analytic language is a language which does not work in endings so much anymore, but in syntax. Okay, the syntax is fixed and prepositions are introduced. Okay, so when you say something like the man kicks the dog, you know who is kicked by the position of the word in the sentence. Okay, and you cannot switch it around. Oh, this means analytic. In Old English, you could have perfectly switched it around because syntax did not encode grammatical relations. There we go. It's as simple as that. Vocabulary. French, of course, has a strong influence on vocabulary of words of a higher register, like work, labor, asked, Anglo-Saxon, then demand, inquire, get, and still Germanic, receive, procure, and so on. I mean, this is that. And this led to the dissociation of the English language today, which means hard words you cannot deduce hard words from native stock anymore, as you can in German. In German, very easy example here, Bauchredner means belly speaker, but in English you have to say ventriloquist, so you have neither ventre nor loqui in English anymore. You have to learn a new word. In German you can just put two native words together to express this one word here, this one concept of ventriloquist, which makes it easier. And yes, please, German is difficult to start with. It gets easier and easier because once you have the basic vocabulary, you can make up all the words you want. English becomes harder and harder the further you want to advance, okay? Using words like serendipity or prevaricator. I don't know, you name them. Wow, you don't have that in German or in any other language, I know. The paradox is that those 200-300 Scandinavian words the Scandinavians brought with them and the Anglo-Saxons took over, they are so much more important than those probably, I don't know, 800,000, something like this, French words we have in the language. Why? Because, I mean, the Scandinavians brought with them, Scandinavians, you remember, Scandinavians, Danes, 8th, 9th century, everyday words like egg, milk, plant, get, take, them, there, and so on. And those Scandinavian words are not to be done away with. I mean, you can't actually speak without those. You can't speak without using words like, I don't know, reciprocate. Or you can. Of course you can. But you can't speak without take or get, believe me, or they and them and there. So this is that. Still, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of French words, only something like 300 Scandinavians. Nevertheless, the Scandinavian influence on the vocabulary is bigger since we use those words in everyday discourse. Okay, and the word fields they brought with them were certainly of a register very specialized, military, administration, law, cuisine, very important, so that you don't eat the animal anymore, you eat something else, You kill a pig and you eat pork, you kill a cow and you eat beef, you kill a deer and eat venison. Very much euphemisms introduced here. So this, that, the Norman influence on the language and culture. And we'll take it from here.